All right, what's up, guys? We are back, another Rest Day podcast. If you are listening to this over on Spotify, we stream every Monday night, 8 o'clock, coming in talking about the training block leading into canyons, what we've been doing, what we got going on. And I can tell already that people have been looking forward to the guests that I posted on social media because usually the first 24 seconds into this live stream podcast, I usually have one, maybe two people, but there's already 10 people in here, which is a huge, huge live stream, guys. Tonight, I have a guy that you probably never heard of until maybe yesterday. And I have a feeling you're going to hear a lot more about him. Jacob Mooney, the winner of the Backyard Ultra that I've been talking about for weeks, is going to join me. I posted a lot of questions. I have a ton of questions for him selfishly, and a humble gentleman. So I'm glad that I got a piece of your time, Jacob. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, man. I'll do my best to answer all your questions.
And in true humble fashion, you have your non-elite shirt on.
I'm not gonna lie, it was a little bit of a statement because I
And
am not an elite runner by any means.
well, we'll let other people maybe be the judge of that and see if that's exactly true. But I also, before we start, I think I need to say thank you for your service. You are a combat veteran as well, right?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, no, I'm not enough people recognize that. I feel like these days. So thank you for your service. And maybe we can get to the Army in a little bit. I do have so many questions about the backyard, and don't want to take up too much of too much of your time. But real quick, just a quick summary of maybe your ultra marathon background, like how long you've been doing ultras, and like what got you into trail running.
Oh wow, okay. So maybe I'll start off a little bit with the Army to kind of lead to it because I wasn't an athlete in high school or anything like that. I never ran. I didn't do track. I didn't do anything like that. It wasn't until I joined the Army that I had actually ran. That's where I kind of discovered a little bit of a love for running, unbeknownst to myself. Um, I just kind of had a knack for it. It came easily, and I was able to hold some pretty quick paces, which at the time I didn't know were quick paces. I was just running because they told me to run. Um, so my kind of like exposure to running started in the military, and then I got out initially in 2002, and I didn't really do anything in terms of running with it. I went to college and I was a little older than everybody else because I'd been in the military, and I knew I had done well with my running in the military. So when I got to college, I was like, well, let me see like if I can talk to like a track coach or something. I don't know. So I walked around the campus looking for where these guys worked. I popped into their office and was like, hey, I just got out of the military. I'm a new student here. I'd be interested in maybe, doing some running. I don't even know how this works exactly. And I got so blown off that I was like, all right, never mind. And that was kind of like the end of running for me for a very long time. So I went to college, worked, grad school, did all that. It was probably like 15 something years where I didn't do anything all that active. And then in 2018, um, me and one of my Army buddies wanted to make a bet on the Super Bowl, and we were coming up with stakes for the bet. And we decided that we would do a Tough Mudder together, and the loser would have to pay for the entry fees for both of us. So once that happened, I was like, all right, well, I got to get myself in shape. I don't want to completely embarrass myself at this thing. I want to survive. So I started running to do this Tough Mudder, and that was about 2018. And then after I did the Tough Mudder, I was like, oh man, I'm going to stick with the training and the running. And then of course I decided I wanted to run a marathon. I was living in Chicago at the time. So I was like, all right. And the Chicago Marathon, where we lived, not when we first moved to Chicago, but eventually we lived downtown, and the route would go right by where we lived. And so I was like, I should run the marathon. Why not? So I started training for the Chicago Marathon, which got me into running longer distances. But I
Right.
ended up dealing with some injuries that shelved me for not a couple of years, but like chunks of years. And then eventually, after I like recovered from these injuries, yeah, I just started training up for that Chicago Marathon again. And then I think I ended up discovering trails because that same buddy of mine that my military buddy that we made the bet that led me to the Tough Mudder. Him and I decided to do a big chunk of the Appalachian Trail. We would start in Georgia and just do like a big chunk of it on a weekend just to kind of get together and spend some time together. And we spent time on the trail, and I had spent time hiking on the trails to get ready for it. And I started to transition some of my runs from the road to the trails as well. So to get in shape for that, that's when I really started to spend more time on the trails. And I also started to think, because we did some long, because we planned on doing like 60 miles in 4 days, which was a ton for me at the time, but there was a bad storm, so we ended up doing about 50 miles in 3 days, which was a huge chunk at the time. Like, it was, it's funny to think of now. At the time I was like, oh my God, 50 miles, what? In 3 days? That's insane. But that really started kind of like, oh man, I like spending time on the trails. Plus I was in the military for a long time and I'm very comfortable out in the woods. We trained in the woods all the time and I loved it. And getting back out there, I was like, oh man, this is so nice.
Awesome. You got some love in the chat here. It says RW said, "Let's go, Jake Woo in the house."
So that's my buddy Wooch, is one of my combat vet buddies right there.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing some time with us, buddy. Yeah, and there'll be questions coming in, and for anybody leaving questions, I am going to get to them all. I do have a couple of talking points too, and a lot of the questions that you guys are going to ask in the chat, I also have here. So stick tight, or you'll be able to play back if you can only stay for a few minutes. But I will get to all the questions, I promise. What is
real quick? I can ramble too, so you just cut me off whenever.
Nah, dude, yeah, you're good. You're good. What's your 2024 been look like race wise? Have you gotten into any official races this year?
Yeah, the only thing that I'm signed up officially for is the same one you're signed up for, is the UTMB, or what is it? Canyons by UTMB. That's the only one I'm officially signed up for, and then I'm waitlisted for Bigfoot 200 and Tahoe 200. And I'm pretty high up on the list, especially for Bigfoot. I think I'm around 50th or 51st on the wait list for Bigfoot and around 117th for the wait list for Tahoe 200. So I don't even know what I'm going to do, because I don't plan on running both of them, but I think there's a chance I get into both of them. And man, It's going to be hard to say no to both. So we'll see, man. Those are the only things that I have lined up right now. But I jumped into that Backyard Ultra 2 weeks notice, so I never know what I like jumping into stuff.
What's 23 looked like so far? Have you raced a lot this year?
23, yeah, I did a lot. What have I done? I did a 50K. I did the Squatch Apple 50K. The Sasquatch Trail Running, I don't know if you're familiar with them.
No.
They do a lot of running events in Jersey and New York, a lot of trail events. And so I did a 50K with them. It's like the third year in a row that I've done an event with them. I did the Wild Goose 100, who they also ran. That was my first 100. I'm going to run the New York City Marathon next year. Oh, yeah, so I guess I'm signed up for that too. So I've been doing the 9+1 program all year. So it's been so funny to do these insane trail events, and then 2 weekends later do a 4-mile run around Central Park as fast as I can, or a 5K. It's because after I did the Wild Goose 100, I think it was only maybe a month. I don't remember exactly, but it was a pretty quick turnaround. And then I did a 5K for the 9+1 program for New York. And I'm pretty sure I'm the only dude that just did a 100-miler, and now I'm doing a 5K. I gotta be the only guy out here. And I ran my fastest 5K I've ever run.
There you go.
Into the 6:40-minute mile or something.
You're doing it all. Karen Oliver says, "Go Jake" over in the chat as well. So this was your first backyard style?
Yeah.
So you said you just joined this up pretty recently. Was there a training block leading into it? You seem pretty you seem humble when I talk to you, because we've been DMing back and forth for a couple weeks now. And when I talked to you about it, when I talked about canyons and things like that, you seem very humble. And when we first spoke, I was like, well, is he going to crush? He's good. I see you on Strava and you had more mileage and you were running well. Was there training for this, or did you just come in fit and you were like, all right, it's the end of the year, I'm pretty fit, let's go see what I can do?
Yeah, so I did the 100 in September, and that went really well. And I had a pretty good recovery for the most part. I did have some knee issues and had to deal with that a little bit. But yeah, I was running well. It kind of caught me in a place where like I had just finished the Wild Goose 100. I was looking ahead to Canyons in April. So I was kind of in the middle of those two things. And I was like, man, my fitness is pretty on point. I've recovered nicely from the 100. I found out about the Backyard Ultra, and I've always wanted to try one because I felt like it fit my style of running really well, especially where I train. And the elevation profile for that race is like, I mean, it's like non-existent. So it like fits because the place where I train, there's a lot of just like really teeny rolling hills, like endlessly. And I walk almost all, not all the uphills, but a lot of the uphills. I'll just walk them and then run. And then I'll walk an uphill and then I'll run. And I'll do that for miles and miles and miles. So when I saw this elevation profile, I was like, I could do that forever. Like if I get into this thing, like they're gonna have somebody to deal with because I can run that terrain at my pace for a long time. But I mean, I got roped into the same trap everybody does when you go to a race and you kind of go a little hotter than you plan to.
Well, I mean, like I said, I mentioned the humbleness that I felt, but I should have, as somebody that grew up in the 90s, when you posted the night before a picture of a lion behind some jail bars, not even that, but the song Invincible by Tool, I should have known that there was a bad motherfucker coming out to mess around. Like, did you have a strategy going in? Did you know, like you just mentioned, like you knew that you could go for a while going in? Like,
yeah.
did you have, because even for the first 8-9 hours we were out there, you were all smiles and, you know, having a grand old time. Did you have a strategy coming in? Like, I'm going to go in and win this. Did you have a distance in mind coming in with the big field? Like what were the thoughts? We'll talk more about during the race, but like driving to the race on Saturday morning or whatnot, what was the thought and what was the plan? What was the mindset?
Yeah, so I had a couple of ideas. I knew it was a big field. I knew it was roughly 200. I actually thought it was 250 people because I mean, I remember looking like how many spots were left. They were like it didn't seem like there were many spots left. So I thought there were going to be about 250 people. Ended up being like 190 something. So I figure in my mind, just like this is my first backyard, so I don't really know. But like given I've watched lots of videos about them and listened to podcasts about them. And so in my mind, I had an idea that the winner probably, not knowing who was showing up to this thing, because I had no idea who was showing up to this thing. I figured somewhere between like 130 and 150 might get a victory. And I thought I was capable of that. My goal going into it was to hit 100 miles.
Okay.
And I wanted to not hit 100 miles to go past 100 miles. So I wanted to do 25 loops. That
PR
was
distance.
I wanted to go more than 100. So going into it, that was kind of the goal I had, was to like do one more than 100 or like 104 or whatever it is. That was kind of the goal. And then somewhere inside of me, I was trying to figure out what distance I had in me. And I believed, even though I don't know if it's true, I believed I could hit 150.
Nice. Was there a point, maybe like there's like two parts to this question. Was there a point in the day early, like I'm saying maybe even before the night loop, was there a time when you're like, I'm all systems go, I am firing, nutrition is good, no GI, no issues. Like the thoughts and the mindset that I had going in, I think I can execute on that. Did that happen early at all?
I not once felt like I wasn't going to hit 100 miles.
Oh, that's so sick.
Not once.
Sick.
I mean, if this is maybe an advantage I have when I do these kinds of things. I mean, and I have DNF, so like, I'm not like, I'm nothing special. Like, an advantage I have in some of these events is that mentally I'm pretty strong. So
Yeah.
even when things like go off the rails and I'm struggling, like I can typically regroup or like take a moment and kind of ground myself and bring it back. And having more experience helps a lot. Having experience really helps me understand that like, oh, you're going through this right now and it's really hard and you feel like you don't have anything left or you feel like you want to quit. But having experience with this and having pushed past it and kind of riding the wave, and then you come out on the other end and you feel really good and you're like, what in the world just happened? Like, how do I feel so good? Like, 20 minutes ago I was ready to like call my mom and like cry. So like having had those experiences and finding the other side of it and then pushing through and then feeling great for a long time, when I hit some hiccups along the way, which I didn't hit any really like significant hiccups this past weekend, but when I have in the past, like I know now that like it's not forever, and like having a strong mindset like helps a lot.
And seeing that firsthand, the first thing I did when I called my coach that night was I said, the night broke me. I'm the opposite. I was not experienced. I've brought experiences from 60Ks and 100Ks into things like that to make, definitely part of it easier. But I was way more physically capable than I showed. But definitely, I came out at 51 miles. I didn't make the right after 50 miles. So that 54-mile loop, I didn't make it back. And the night it really did. I said to my coach, I said, I got to get out there, because when you get out there during the day, there's so many distractions, but like that headland, when you're seeing 4 feet in front of you, like you are truly just you and your mind. And I got to admit, it broke me. Like I didn't know how to handle that. I'd never, even in Grindstone, when it was the middle of the night and I had to put that headlamp on, I've made reels about how difficult that was on me. And, the beauty is that I know that and I recognize that. And I can, now I can say I need to work on that, because I mean, I physically aces, like woke up feeling good, like feeling bad that I wasn't as thrashed as I feel like I should have been. But one of the things that broke me is mental. I was going to ask, like, what was the hardest loop? Like talk any low points that you had during the day, if any. I mean, you might have had a perfect day, but there had to be a worse loop, even if it was like that second night loop when you're like, man, this back and forth and back and forth and back and forth.
I know that my word. I had one loop in particular that I really So I knew the elevation profile, but I didn't really know the course all that well. I had only looked at the elevation chart, and I didn't know the route on the road. I thought it was so I thought we would go out, you go up, back, and then back into the start. And so when we went out and we went down the road and then back to the end, and then we did it like 2 more times or something, I was like, how many times do we have to run past like our happy little home? That's what broke tough.
Me. Yeah,
it was tough.
For me, going down by the main road by the entrance, when you first came around that little booth, coming around that booth and saying to myself, I have to come all the way back down here again. Like that for me was like by far the hardest part. Todd asked, what shoes were you running in? So do you have a go-to trail shoe, or are you like a rotating shoe kind of guy?
I rotate. Yeah. I mean, I rotate. Yeah. I mostly use Hoka Speedgoats. I love the Speedgoat. I love the Speedgoat Evo. I was so sad when they discontinued that. Excuse me. Oh man, I was so sad when they discontinued that shoe, because that's a good shoe. But so I mostly use Speedgoats. For this race, I use the New Balance, the More V4. I was a little nervous about using it because it had been giving me some issues digging into my ankles when I do some longer stuff, right? But also when I do stuff with more elevation. So because this course was so flat, and I had done some training at the Manasquan Reservoir, which is pretty flat trail running, and I could do some runs there without them causing too much issue on my ankles. I was like, all right, let me give these a shot, because the cushioning is going to be really nice if I'm going to be out there for 100, 125, 150 miles. I was like, these things are going to save my feet. So I wore those during the trail sessions, and then for the evening sessions on the road, I wore the Saucony Endorphin Speed 3, which is my absolute favorite shoe. I could do anything in that shoe.
I hear great things about that shoe. Yeah, I wear the Asics Nova Blast on the road, and I've been wanting to try those Sauconys out so badly.
They're solid, man. I like them.
Yeah. So I went out at 9 p.m. and there was like 75 people still left. At what point in the night, if any, did you notice like, wow, there's not a lot of people left? Was there a big drop at 100K? I wasn't there for that. Like, at what point in the night where you're like, man,
Yeah,
camp's getting a little bit quieter, things are getting a little darker around here? What was that like?
yeah, that was, I mean, certainly all the milestones, like at all the like milestone distances, it would just get a little quieter and quieter. You know, when people hit the like 50K, I felt like there was a drop. When people hit the like 100K, there was a drop. So like marathon distance, I felt like there was a little bit of a drop.
Mhm.
Even when we transitioned from trail to road, like I felt like it didn't take long for things to dwindle. Um, but to be perfectly honest, like I think Allison's my significant other and like my support and my crew chief, and like I couldn't get any of this stuff done without her. She is just the best. But when I would come in, she would be there, and I would look around and be like, "Oh my god, like you're by yourself. I feel so bad." So I like later on in the evenings, I was definitely noticing like, wow, there's like nobody here, which is
Right.
kind of weird because you're used to finishing some of these events, especially like bigger marathons, and that's where everybody is. At this one, it's the opposite. It's like there's nobody there at the end.
Um, it looked like there was a bunch of you, and then it went from a bunch of you down to just you and Bernard pretty quick. Like, how long was it just the two of you?
I don't know exactly, but
Yeah.
yeah, we were running at night together for a long time. And that
How,
dude, man, he's such a good guy. I never met him before.
right.
We logged some good miles on the trails together. He's Yeah, we logged some good miles on the trails together, and then I don't remember logging a lot of miles with him at first at the nighttime, but as the numbers dwindled, we started connecting and running together. But he runs a faster pace in a different style than I do. So I was doing myself a disservice by running with him, but it was enjoyable. So it felt like it was I was kind of weighing my options because there were times I'm like, I shouldn't keep doing this because I'm running faster than I should. I'm not like
Right.
preserving what I have. But I was having such a good time, and he's such a nice guy that I was like, you know what? We'll get back sooner and I'll have a longer break. It'll be fine. Because one of the things that he does differently than me is he doesn't take a lot of walk breaks, and I will walk a lot of the hills, but then
Okay.
I'll pick up my pace. And I can hit the downhills pretty hard and make up decent time on the downhills because my quads are pretty decent at this point. So I think, and we would catch each other. So we'd be running different styles, but we kept catching each other. So
I know
like, he,
you kept catching me like towards the end of the loop, then you catch me in the middle loop, then you caught me in the beginning of the loop, and then right before we went to the night, you like passed me a quarter mile down the trail, and I was like, oh man. Treen Dog says the last 3 laps you guys ran together, and Dominic here also says, "Let's go, Jake." Um,
what's up, Dom?
how glorious was sunrise? Tell me about, because as somebody that's never ran through the night, but I've definitely run at 4 in the morning into sunrise. I know how glorious sunrise can be, but this time of year, it was dark at 4:30. Like it got dark during our 4:30 loop. And then
Yeah.
those night loops were awful with the there, back, there. But we passed the finish line 5 times every loop. There, back, there, back.
Yeah, such a tease.
Did did you I know that I know that I really lost track of the time of the day towards like 2 3 p.m. Like I knew you saw the sun was low all day because it's winter, but like you saw the sun coming down and you're like, all right, like did you know it was 2 a.m., 3 a.m., or were you just chipping away, or like
No,
was there like,
I don't
oh
pay.
man, if I get through 3 laps now the sun's gonna come up, or was it all of a sudden like, oh wow, birds are chirping and here we go?
Yeah, I don't pay attention to too much of that stuff.
Yeah.
I just kind of run and do my thing. The one thing that was difficult, I think it was tough for me and Barney, was it was really foggy. It got really, really foggy. So for a lot of the like, it must have been like 3 a.m., 4 a.m., like 5 a.m., all those hours, it was very, very foggy. You could barely, like, your headlamp was showing you like right in front of your feet, and that was it. So it
Yeah.
was very disorienting. um Yeah, there were times where I was like running on the road, and then all of a sudden I'm like on the side of the road. I'm like, oh, geez, I didn't even know I was like off track. And you kind of veer back into the road and like I just swerving all over the place because there was no visibility. Um,
Yeah.
so that was the nice part about the sun coming up, was getting like losing the fog to have to deal with. But I really like the nighttime. I feel like I'm the opposite of a lot of runners, where it's like kind of how you were describing, like during the daytime you were like vibing and there's people and it's cool. I'm the opposite. Like I tell myself, let's get to nighttime, and then that's my like happy place. Like I'm kind of like just get to knock out miles and I don't have to worry about anything. And like that's so sometimes the sun coming up, it's like it feels good. It's like I think physiologically a nice pick me up, but mentally it's like a different story for me.
What, even going back into the trail?
No, I mean I wanted to go back to the trail. I don't
Yeah.
like running on the road.
Yeah. It says Trissa, I think it's Trissa, sorry if I say your name wrong, and Daniel Jackson said, so proud of you, Jake, over in the chat there.
Thanks.
Did you happen to talk to like Bernard about like how long you guys, was there any gamesmanship going on? Was there any like, how long are we going to do this? Was either of you like, this is how many miles I have in me? Like, what's it like when, you're stepping up to the start line for now almost a day? You got to kind of like be looking at the guy and trying to game him a little bit, or is that not your style? Were there any head games going on, or any like, were you moaning a little, maybe trying to show some weakness, or were you trying to act strong to let him know that you weren't going anywhere? Like, what's those last couple people like? Not because obviously you didn't know if you guys went 3 laps together. Did you know that 100-mile was kind of like going to be his limit, or did you guys talk going further on than that, or not talking about the distance at all?
Yeah, him and I had talked a couple of times, and he had mentioned to me that his goal was to hit 100 miles. That was his intention, was to hit 100. And and to be honest, when it got down to the two of us, and it felt like we were still pretty early in the race. I felt like we still had a long ways to go to get to 100, and it was just the two of us. And there were a couple of times where I'm like, man, I don't want to let this dude down. Like, I want him to get to his 100. Like, okay, so Jake, you're definitely doing 100 because you're not letting this guy not hit his goal. So a little extra like motivation, and because I just felt like we got along really well. I don't feel like there was any gamesmanship needed. And I mean, if I was running with other people, like I don't think that's really going to do anything for me anyways. Like if somebody was to
Right.
try and pull anything with me, like I don't really care. Like I just do my own thing, so
Yeah.
it's like that stuff wouldn't matter too much to me. And I wouldn't believe it. I'd be pretty skeptical of anything, because even with him, I was thinking to myself, like, because he's such a solid runner and he always looked so strong and he held such good
Yes,
paces, I
he
was
did.
thinking he has this goal of 100 and he's going to stop at 100, and he's let me know that, and I believed him. Um, but in the back of my mind, it was hard not to think like he is still going
He
strong.
still
So
looks
like
good.
don't
Yeah.
don't let yourself think that you're stopping at 104. Prepare yourself to hit your goals. Like prepare yourself to do what you came here to do. Like
Mm-hmm.
don't let yourself fall into some sort of false sense of security. Like, oh, all you got to run is 104 and you get the win.
Right.
Um, yeah, and yeah, so there wasn't a lot of gamesmanship. He let me know
Okay.
what he was thinking. I believed him. I
Did
wouldn't
you
do that
tell
to
did you
anybody
tell him
else.
did you tell him any distances you want? Did you just talk about your distance goals or anything?
I think at one point when we were chatting, I think I had told him I believed I could do 150, because
Okay.
I told it. I think I had told, I don't. Oh, you
Oh,
still
you're
there?
good. You're good.
Okay. Yeah, I think at one point I told him, yeah, my main goal was to get over 100 miles, and then at another point I told him, I hadn't shared it with I mean I hadn't shared it with really anybody except for Allison, that I believed I could hit 150 miles.
Yeah.
So she knew, and then while we were out there at some point when we were just talking, and talking. I think probably when we were talking about goals, I must have said like, yeah, I think I have 150 in me. But that other guy, that young guy that was there, that guy's a beast.
Which one? Ryan Clifford?
Yeah, Ryan Clifford. We
Yeah.
ran a lot together. The three of us ran together for a couple of loops. And
I don't think there was another person there besides you that didn't think that guy was going to win. Like he was a
I didn't know
heavy,
him.
because he's a local guy. So
him.
local guy, local race. He's crushed races around here before, and yeah, he's a
not
very
only did I not know anything about him, I didn't know anything about how he was doing. I never like early on, even like the first like 70% or 75% of the race, like.
And there's a guy Peter. There's a guy Peter there that was really strong as well.
Yeah, I didn't really notice him till like in the evening loops. All of a sudden he like popped up, because he was like, I had seen him, but then all of a sudden he popped up and he was like running way faster than me and just crushing. I'm like, where did this guy come from? Wow, he's doing great. And there were two other runners that looked really steady. They were always behind me. Oh, it was that guy. It was him and a woman who I think somebody said her name is Rachel.
Yeah. Yep. Rachel.
Yeah. So those two are running together for a long time. And I think maybe when she bowed out is when he started pumping up the pace and crushing.
Rachel was the one wearing the orange Tesla Hertz shirt, which is a local race around here that you definitely should look up. The race director actually raced with us, and the race director of that race raced with us, and the race director of the Backyard, he crushes and dominates. They do a 10-miler at night, and he's been winning that for the last couple of years. So maybe we'll get you out here for Tesla Hertz next year. What were you eating during the day? What's your nutrition look like? I saw you had a handheld. Was that water? What was in your handheld?
Yeah, that was Tailwind. All the handheld was just Tailwind, and then every now and again I would carry like a Rice Krispie treat, or I would take a Pop-Tart with me. But because the loop is so short, it's 4 miles, most of the time I wouldn't take anything with me except for the handheld, and I would do all my eating during the break. Okay. I felt like that was working really well because I had taken food earlier on and I had eaten a little bit while I was doing the loop, and I was like, I don't need to do this. It's 4 miles. Like and I felt like it sits a little better when you like actually take a minute to digest it and sit in the chair and like let the heart rate come down. And so that's
do you like look for, are you looking carbs? Are you looking specific foods, or do you have just like things you can eat that your stomach can handle?
Yeah. Things that I know my stomach can handle, I've figured out. They give me the nutrients I need and to keep going. The probably the biggest game changer for me in terms of my nutrition, because I most of it's coming from like the aid station will almost always have a peanut butter jelly something, and I'll try and always get one of those, at least one every time I come to the aid station, and I'll eat that as I'm walking back to my chair. And then when I get to my chair, I'll have like a smaller snack if I'm feeling really good. If I'm starting to feel a little fatigued, then I'll my new go-to is I'll have a slice of bread and I'll throw guacamole all over the bread. And
guacamole?
Yep.
Really?
I just cover a piece of bread with guacamole, and I am like a new runner. I am like we just started the race. So that's why once I start to feel a little fatigued, that is like my go-to. And I discovered it because I mean, I'm not even a crazy guacamole fan. I probably didn't even eat guacamole like 2 years ago. I don't even think I had consumed that once in my entire life. But I discovered, I was watching a documentary about that Backyard Ultra, the one where they do a mile loop and they have 20 minutes to do a mile. It has Chad Wright, the former Navy SEAL.
Yes.
Great. Really, really well-produced documentary. It's on Amazon Prime. I think you have to pay for it. But when I was watching that, whenever he was seated in between loops, I saw him eating a slice of bread with guacamole, and that dude had won it the previous year and he ended up winning it that year. And I was like, well, shoot, I mean, it's working for that guy, and that guy's a stud. Like, let me try it. So, and I did. I mean, I totally pulled a rookie mistake too. It worked out for me, but it was a rookie mistake because the whole like nothing new on race day. The first time I ever tried this was at my first 100 in September.
Jesus.
Yeah, we were at the grocery store. Like, we drove to the race. We were at the grocery store, and I saw the guacamole. I'm like, oh yeah, that dude, he was doing like guacamole and bread. So I bought a loaf of
Did you
bread.
get
I
like those
bought,
little holy guacamole thing? The little
yeah,
like,
yeah,
really?
yep,
All
yep.
right, Mike Petrina, you're on for next year's aid station. Please get some guacamole at the aid stations were great, right? We'll talk about the whole race and
Oh
how it's
yeah,
put together,
yeah.
but yeah, no, there was. Did you have any of the pierogies, the little potato things? Oh, they were.
I don't venture out too much, because you even offered pizza at one point. I'm like, that is the cruel. I mean, you might get me to DNF by talking about pizza. I'm like, I want that really badly right now. We've been out here forever, but I mean, I don't
I
know how
ended
that's
up.
gonna
My
hit
wife
my
brought a
stomach.
bunch. We ended up going through a bunch of pizzas. I was giving them out to everybody, and yeah, that's. But like, I have a really like iron stomach when it comes to that. So that's
I
that
don't. I don't by any means.
you said I saw the race was posting highlights and updates and stuff, and you said going out onto your last lap, you said I'll see you in roughly 45 minutes, and I think there's only a few people literally in the world that know what this feeling is like. So I kind of want to get it from your perspective. What does the last lap feel like? Did you try and hammer it to get it done with? Did you soak it in? Was there any emotion? Like, was it quiet? Like, was it what because you said that, you knew you had it in you. You felt good. You knew you could go. And now, boom, all of that mindset and everything has come to fruition. Like, when you're coming down off the gravel road and getting ready to make that left to go into the trails, like, man, what the fuck did that feel like? Damn, what did that feel like?
It was cool, man. It was. I planned on kind of hammering it and getting it over with, because I knew I didn't have to like keep any reserves. So I was like, I just have to do this one loop and I'm done. Like, I don't need to like save anything for later. So I plan on kind of hammering it just to be done. And I found my first mile was the one that was a little emotional, where it was a little like,
Mhm.
man, we got this done. We showed up and got this done. This is nice.
And
And I was
and the
definitely
lake
feeling
is
like a
nice
well of
there.
emotions. Yeah, 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 yeah.
The
That's
lake
exactly
is
what it
nice
was.
that first mile too. Yeah, dude.
Yeah, yeah. So like that oh well, no, no, no. Yeah, yeah. So that first mile I was feeling the good vibes. And then it was kind of like, then I realized I maybe had gone out a little too hot, and I was like, "Oh my god, I still got like 3 miles to go." So I like brought it back in check and just kind of like hammered it home. But the first mile was definitely kind of like, was where I was feeling a little overwhelmed with uh with joy, and not even just for me, like all the runners out there were so much fun to spend the day with and the night
Mhm.
with, and the people that were running the event were amazing. It was so nice to meet them, Mike and the other two folks that were there all the
There, wa-
time.
there was
The other
another
volunteer,
Mike. There was another Mike, and there was
Courtney.
Courtney, I believe. Yep, Courtney.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, the
those
three
are
of
like
them were
the
just,
the core that were there pretty much
yeah,
all the
yeah,
time. Yeah,
yeah. Saw
and Mike
them like every
Petrina's
time
in
I
here.
got
The
there.
race director's in here as well too, so you could say what's up to
Yeah,
him. He's
hey, you crushed it, man. It was awesome. Such a fun event.
yeah,
But
no,
yeah, so like that was part of that final loop, was I was really feeling like, man, what a fun 25 hours. That was like so much fun. I met a ton of new people. I got to push myself. I had so many fun conversations. I shared miles with so many fun people. Especially because I'm kind of a lone wolf runner. I do most of my training by myself, and it's kind of what I prefer. I I I like doing these things by myself. Like, that's my that's kind of like my natural instinct, is to do these things by myself. Because even when the first ultra I did was just me jumping in my car with Allison, driving out to Pennsylvania to hit this West Rim Trail that I discovered randomly. And I think it was like just about 31 miles, 30 miles, something like that. I had never done a marathon, never done an ultra, nothing like that. And I just like, we got a little hotel, and we never even saw a person in the hotel. Like, that's how kind of rinky dinky this whole area was. Like, we showed up at the hotel, there was like a written note or something. We got our key, we went to the room, and like we never saw a person at this hotel once. It was very strange. But then got up early in the morning, and like she dropped me off, and I was like, I'll see you at the halfway point at like 15, 16 miles or something. And then took a nice little break with her, had some food, and then shot off and did like the next 16 miles or so. And that was all by myself. Like I had never been
Yeah.
out there. I had just looked at the trail a little bit and I loved it. I love that kind of thing. So, but so to kind of like throw myself into these situations where I do these events with lots of people, um, part of it is to force myself to like do these things with lots of other people because it's also good for me. Um, so I was thinking a lot about on that last loop, a lot about all the cool people that I spent time with, and like it's hard not to think of all those people. And
I'm sure it's been,
they're all extraordinary, man. They're all out there
yeah.
doing like killer stuff. Whether you're going like 5 miles or 20 miles, like it's awesome. It's
I'm
awesome.
sure it's bittersweet too. Yeah. Cause like it even like for me, like I have the FOMO of like, man, I wish I was still out there. And then it's like, you know, it sucks that it's over, but you don't really want to suffer. If Mike puts it together again, you're going to come back and defend.
I don't know. I don't know. It is a long drive, man. Because I'll tell you what,
Well,
driving home.
you can come stay with me. Come stay with me the day or two leading into it, you know?
I might have if I come back out there, and it also will depend on how it lines up with other stuff I end up doing.
Yeah.
But if it lines up and I can go out and do it again, yeah. Especially because I know that young guy wants to do like 200 miles. That's what he was saying out there on the
Yeah.
course,
Yeah.
and
And he can do it too. He
I
wasn't talking shit.
oh no, I believe it. No, I
Yeah.
believe
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That guy, I think that dude could do like 300 miles.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Me and Barney were both kind of like, oh boy, this guy.
David asked in the chat, he said, when I run marathons, the only time I stop is during an aid station. I notice I get a little stuck, and it gets hard to get going again. How do you not stiffen up during breaks? I can say for me personally, like at that low intensity, it gets a little easier for me to start and stop and start and stop. It would definitely be like in grindstone when I was pushing a little bit harder. It was definitely, you know, a little bit harder to get going again. But like, did you feel those breaks? What was your average loop time like during the day? Like, did you say, I want to come in at this time, giving myself this much break? Do you think there would have been too much break for you or not enough break? Like, what's that do to the body? Do you have any problems starting and stopping in an event like this?
No, I think I didn't really have too much of a strategy. I told myself I would do the loops in 50 minutes during the day and give myself 10 minutes because I didn't want too long sitting in the chair. Just because I felt like the longer I sat, the harder it would be to get going again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what ended up happening is just because there were so many people, it was hard to keep any sort of particular pace. And then you end up running with certain people and you end up going a little faster or slower. So I started to not care too much about my time, but I found myself hanging with people who were running around 45, getting back in about 45 minutes. Excuse me. So I ended up doing mostly 45-minute loops, I think. And I would have the 15 minutes, but I found the 15 minutes okay. Like I found the 15 minutes kind of nice.
Okay.
I had enough time to really just kind of like because I was running those faster loops, my heart rate was higher than I wanted it to be. So I was hanging out closer to like zone 3 for probably like the first like 40 miles or something, which I shouldn't have, especially if I wanted to go far. But what I found was because I was doing those loops faster, when I got into the chair and I had like 15 minutes, my heart rate drops very quickly once I stop.
Mm-hmm.
So my heart rate was dropping significantly. So then I felt like I wouldn't say I was like recovering, but like it felt like I was coming out of the breaks like pretty refreshed. You always have to force nutrition. Sometimes I don't want to like eat my bread and guacamole or whatever it
Right.
is I'm eating. Like I don't want to, but I always make myself do it. I mean, it is a pain. Sometimes I don't eat all of it, but I force the nutrition because that's the fuel that's going to keep me going. But the thing I tell myself with the starting and stopping, because a lot of my running that I do on the trails, I do a lot of like running and walking and running and
Yeah, you
walking.
mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of times where when I hit that walking and because I know all the spots where I'm going to start to run again, and there are so many times where I'm like, oh, I do not want to start the run part again. But every time, like it doesn't take long for you to get back into the swing of things. So you just got to remind yourself, like, okay, like just take that first step. Just take
Yeah.
that first step. And even with the sitting and you kind of stiffen up and the body, like you're gonna loosen up, like it's gonna happen. It's just like just take those first couple of steps and like you'll be fine in no time.
What's recovery look like? How thrashed are you when you plan on running again. I know you said that you've always had a pretty quiet Strava profile, and it's got a little bit busier in the last couple days.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's gonna stick, but I'll stick with it for now. All that activity on my Strava here.
More, you're getting all those kudos, but yeah. Now, what's it like? Have you moved, or are you? What's your active recovery like? And I'm sure that's
Yeah.
because I know a lot of people that you have the run streaker people that are out running yesterday again. Then you have guys like me. I don't plan on running again until Thursday, most likely. And just I did a walk today, maybe get on the bike or something tomorrow. But what's that? What's the body feel like?
Yeah, so the body feels really good. The only thing that's sore are my quads. My quads are a little sore, and I'm pretty sure that's just from all the road. Um, so my quads are a little tender. I can go up the stairs with no problem. Going down the stairs, they hurt a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not terrible. And one of my toes took a beating, which I didn't even know until I got in the car and like took off the shoes and socks. I was like, "Whoa, when did that happen?" So one toe is pretty beat up, but that I mean, I kind of
Yeah.
ignored all of that. I
What
just
about like compared to your other 100 that you did? What like with the start and stop versus, just going for 100 straight? Did you see any difference in how your body reacted to that, or maybe even with the more experience and maybe a little more strength, the body handled it differently this time?
Yeah, I feel better this time.
Yeah.
Only my quads are a little sore. That's it. Like I don't have
Okay.
anything. After the last 100, my knees were killing me after the last 100. I had to like take a little more time than I wanted to because my knees really hurt. Well, my knee was hurting so bad I went and saw a doctor. Yeah, this is kind of crazy. I went and saw a doctor because I'd had some knee pain for a while. But runners, we kind of run through most
Yeah.
things, especially me. Like I run through everything. So I'd been having some knee pain for a while, and when I did that 100 in September, um, everything felt fine till about mile 50, and then at mile 50, my left knee really started hurting, and ran through it for a while, and then eventually I just popped some Advil and was like, "We just got to get this thing done. So let's just kind of keep driving on." And it would kind of come and go. So after that, and then when I got home in the following day, it really hurt. So I went and saw the doctor, and I've got kind of like a sports medicine guy that I see, and he sent me to get an MRI. And while I'm waiting to get back in touch with him and waiting for the results, like I'm continuing to like try and build back up and run and walk and bike and all that stuff. And so, like when I first ran, I ran like a mile and it started to hurt a half a mile into it. And so, and then like the following run, I would get to like 2 miles and it would start to hurt. I'm like, oh, okay. So then I'd get to like 3.5 miles and then it started to hurt. So I was like, all right, we'll just keep this up until the pain goes away. So I had like I had built myself back up to like probably like 13 miles or 15 miles or something like that with no pain. So I was like, I think we're in the clear now. And then then I went and saw the doctor for the follow up for the MRI results. And he told me I had completely torn my ACL in my left knee. Like, yeah, so I ran that whole 100, and actually, to be perfectly honest, I don't even know when I did it. Like, I could have done it like a year ago for all I know. Like, I've been dealing with some knee pain for a while, and I just been running through it. And yeah, complete tear of my ACL at some point. He's like, yeah, it's non-existent. I was like, wow. So what does this mean? Like, what are my options? Um, so he obviously brought up the fact that like you can have surgery to get it repaired, but he was a little baffled because he had never heard of ultra marathons and stuff like that. And he's like, I honestly don't know how you're doing what you're doing, but there are some people out there that I guess are copers. And I guess I'm like in the small percentage of people who are just copers with certain injuries. And my body has just kind of like figured
So
out a way to work.
you don't know if you tore it during the race or it had been torn.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's been torn for like possibly like a year and a half or something. I honestly have no idea. And because my running was going so well when I went to that doctor's appointment, I was excited because I'm like, oh, this guy's gonna get these results and he's gonna be like, yeah, you're good. It's just like, it's just some wear and tear from this crazy run you just did. Like, you're good, get back to what you're doing, maybe some physical therapy. And when I got into the office and he came in and had the results and he sat down, the first thing he did was he just made a sound. He's like, oof. And I was like, oof, that's not good. Like, oof, what?
Am I
And
gonna
then he
live?
gave, yeah, I'm like, man, I thought, like, I'm feeling great. What are you talking about? So I was pretty shocked when he told me I tore my ACL. But
um, so humbleness aside, we're both doing canyons, and I've
Yeah.
mentioned to you that I would like to I'd like to win my age group. And until Saturday, I thought that was very, very possible. Maybe I need you to get that ACL surgery or whatnot. But
Yeah.
what a what are the
I'm not going for any age group wins, so don't worry about me.
yeah, okay. But that aside, what's your goal? Like, what you're going to canyons? It's a 100 miler. It's a UTMB World Major. It does have
Ton of
qualifying
elevation.
spots. If it does a ton of elevation, net downhill. Um, what are you racing before then? Do you have a little bit of an off season? What does between now and April look like for you?
Well, I definitely don't have an off season.
Yeah.
I don't take breaks. Yeah. Um, I I will build up. I probably won't start taking things a little more seriously for canyons until January. I'll just kind of get back in the swing of what I normally do. Um, but I try to keep myself in a state where if I want to jump into something and go for it, like I can. So, um, but January I'll start to figure out a plan for canyons and how I can. My only goal for canyons is to beat the cutoffs and beat the standard to get the gems to enter the lottery for UTMB.
Yeah.
That's my
But
only goal. Like,
why not just win the age group and then you go? You don't have to worry about the stones.
I'm not a speed guy, man. I'm not a. That's why I did well this past weekend. Like, you just go out there and bop along. I could run all
Okay.
night if I bop along at my pace, you know?
Well, the guy that won our age group last year, it was a different course, but he went like 23 hours. You don't think that's touchable for you?
No. With that
Really?
elevation profile, no. I'm not a fast runner. I'm not a fast. I mean, I
Okay.
got third place at that Wild Goose 100 that I did in September. The
Yeah.
only reason that I got third place is because it was the weekend of a horrible storm and it rained the entire time. So all my third place did was it just validated the fact that I am really good at suffering. Like, if some of those people who I guess didn't like the rain potentially had stayed in the race, there's no way this guy's getting a third place. Like, it was only because the weather was bad. So I just like trotted along and did my thing and pretended the rain wasn't even there.
All right, man. Like, all right. Well, thanks so much for your time. I'm actually we'll end the live stream and then I'll let you go. So stick around here for a second. But guys, thanks for joining in. And I hope I learned a lot. And it's been an absolute joy. And you mentioned the good people. And I said to my wife, this was my second Backyard Ultra. And the other ones I've done, like you meet people here and there, but there's just something about the format and seeing people over and over again. And the last one I did, I made a lifelong friend. And I feel like this one, I made a lifelong friend. I feel like you and I are going to be friends for life. And, a couple other people as well. And that's, you know, I, I think if anybody's like looking to try a Backyard Ultra, even just for that community aspect, it's a great type of race to, you know, get out there, find some PR miles, hopefully. And yeah, man, it's gonna be awesome. I can't wait to get out to you in Jersey and run some miles and prep for canyons. And I think we're gonna have a lot of fun, a lot of new adventures ahead. And like I said, I appreciate your time greatly, and I appreciate everyone for listening and sticking around and asking all the questions and things like that. If you are once again listening to this later on Spotify, you can join me every single Monday night as I document into canyons. And I have a feeling we'll have Jacob back on here again, maybe in 4 more months. We'll reminisce on the winter and we'll talk about everything that's been going on, guys. So thanks so much. I do appreciate you. And we'll catch you next week, Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.